Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open up this meeting tonight of the ZBA. The agenda's been posted for a long time. I want to first invite Laura Hebb up to, because of the open meeting law, if there's ever so many people from the selectmen in the same room, they have to have an official meeting. So she's going to open up the meeting and help one of you. Might even make a comment.
Yes. I'd like to open the Selectmen's meeting at 6:30 on July 17th.
Second.
Thank you. And I do have a comment. As you're all well aware, this has been a long process, one in which a plethora of information has been provided to the town and the ZBA. On June 15th, the Board of Selectmen entered into an agreement to have the Hill Law Firm perform an independent third-party review of this process and the documentation for this 40B application to hopefully put to rest any questions. Hill's opinion was provided to the Board of Selectmen on July 6th. Board of Selectmen voted to release Hill's findings to the ZBA and the public at a meeting on Wednesday, July 10th. Myself and Joe Layden met with Kevin Lobiser and David Pine on Friday, July 12th to discuss Hill's opinion letter. The outcome of that 2-hour discussion was my request as chair of the Board of Selectmen to provide documented proof, point by point, that Attorney Hill's opinion was perhaps arbitrary and capricious. This was done in a 20-page letter provided to the Board of Selectmen and ZBA yesterday, July 16th, late afternoon. This was also bolstered by a memorandum of law provided by Attorney Elfin on July 11th. These documents were discussed this morning at a Board of Selectmen meeting held at 11:30 a.m. These documents have been posted to the ZBA website, and it's my understanding will therefore be included in the record. It is the majority of the Board of Selectmen's opinion that the 40B process has been followed, that the ZBA should continue to perform their job and follow the 40B application process as they have throughout, and to make their decision based simply on documentation and facts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Mr. Lobiser, I'm assuming that you're going to start off speaking tonight?
Sure.
Okay.
I assume you want me to stand up here?
Yes. Yep.
Might be a while.
Yeah, there's a lot of little changes, but that's what it's like at this point in the process, trying to get everything just right.
Yep.
And we have Chris to keep us on track in terms of making sure everything's followed. So.
All right, well, thank you. I'd like to start off by the normal update that we would typically give the board. Some of the simpler items to discuss would be the ongoing conversations that we've had with the neighbors. 4 School Street, 6 School Street, and the funeral home. As far as 4 School Street is concerned, we have agreed on a scope, and as soon as the 40B, if it does get approved and we're moving forward, we would perform the work that we have agreed to with Paul at 4 School Street, which is a tree buffer zone that we will be doing. With the funeral home, we had a little bit of a curveball last week, but it's not a bad curveball. It's just that Andrew decided that instead of having a swale system on the side of his yard, that he would like to have his own engineer design more of a diverter trench drain, which we've met with him again just the other day, and I told him that we have no problem with performing that work for him. His engineer was going to give us the plan. The only thing that was slightly in flux was that I wanted to see what the plan was going to look like to determine how aggressive it was for something with conservation, for example, and if it was going to be a little bit more aggressive than I would want to propose, I would have no problem with his engineer getting that permit, and if they get the permit, I would do the work, or we would go back to doing what we know could be permitted very easily. So that was that. 6 School Street, a little bit different. I'd like to start off by saying, I think by now everybody knows that we have a long history of working straight up with the boards and the neighbors. We had an agreement with 6 School Street. In fact, our last meeting was just on July 9th, and that meeting went really, really well. Our proposal with them included some grading, some drainage work, and some modifications to their fencing system. Keeping in mind that all of their current conditions that they have exist with or without our project. Based on the most recent letter that 6 School Street has submitted this morning, I would take that to understand that we no longer have an agreement, which is very unfortunate because we've worked very hard with them and we thought that we had a decent relationship built to work. So I just want to let the board know that we will be requesting to strike that work from this decision. Okay? That's my update with the neighbors.
And that's C25D on the draft letter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the draft decision.
So,
Okay.
Conservation Commission update. We've had 3 public hearings with the Conservation Commission. The Conservation's peer review engineer has been to the site 2 times. We have answered all of their questions. We have made some minor adjustments and are providing the board with the updated plan and written responses to the questions that we answered at last week's meeting. We're expecting them to close the hearing at the next meeting. That's the expectation at the last meeting. We asked if they needed anything else from us, and they said no. So that's where we're at. It could change, but that's the current update.
It's hard for us to really have any impact from their engineer because nothing's coming to us that I know of. And
Yeah.
if it's not before us,
Yep.
but you have to deal with them anyways.
Yes.
And thank you for being proactive and working with them.
Mhm. The draft decision, I think the board knows that Attorney Smolak, Attorney Alvin, and the town planner, Mike, have been working really hard on that decision. And what I'd like to say is that once I wrap up with this update, I'd like to turn it over to those professionals to probably have that discussion go to the next level anyway, right? Okay. So of course that leads us to Attorney Hill's opinion letter. Our team has thoroughly responded in writing to this letter, as the chair of the select board just mentioned. We officially submitted that response to the ZBA as well as the Board of Selectmen. And I know I don't want to spend too much time on this because we literally just put the 20-page response together, so that was a lot of work. But I do, I think it's worth reviewing why it's so disappointing to have received it. First is that the fact that the timing and how late in the process we actually are at is very frustrating. This type of general overview may have had some value before the first zoning board meeting that we had. Not 10 months later, after virtually every topic in the letter has been discussed, designed, adjusted, and almost in all cases, agreed upon. So that's my stance on that. 2, we were told in advance by the town administrator that they were having an attorney look at some items, which we obviously know we have no say. If they want to do it, they want to do it, it's fine. But at the time, they told David and myself in person, and Ed Marchant the same day or the day later on the phone, that they were going to be looking to dot the I's and cross the T's for the application process and the procedures, which we fully supported. We said, if we miss something, let us know and we'll adjust it. So that's what we thought the marching orders were. Clearly, the letter never mentions either the application process or the procedures. It does not mention it because the ZBA, Attorney Alvin, Mike Antonellis, and our team all follow the rules of the 40B application. And that's why there's nothing in that letter that says it. Lastly, in my opinion, any reasonable person reading this letter that has even a limited experience of anything in business knows exactly what the purpose of this letter was. It was a bunch of spitballs thrown at the wall to fearmonger on the hopes of landing further work. His letter even at the end says, pay me more, I'll hire some more people to see what we can find, right? It was not researched, it was not fact-based, it was not accurate, and worst of all, it did not recognize the 10 months of hard work that the ZBA, the town planner, all of the review professionals, the department heads of the town, our team, and even the neighbors that have put into this. So that's where I'm at as far as how frustrated I was. There's a lot of pages here, but it's big writing, so I have to get my reading glasses. So I just wanted to I know, like I said, we thoroughly answered the report, but I knew there'd be a lot of people here tonight, and I know that the board maybe hasn't had a chance to look at this thing. But I did want to just hit on some of the, what I'm going to do is just hit, like, for example, I'm going to say historic. So I'm just kind of hitting what he was at historic. I'm going to just give a little brief explanation for why the letter is ridiculous. Historic. For the 10th time, our building is not located in the historic zone. And the state has already ruled that the project will not affect historical or archaeological resources. Design. For the past 10 months, we have worked with the board and the neighborhood, I mean literally for probably 40 hours with the neighborhood, to modify the design of the building. We have arrived at a greatly improved design. Mr. Hill is very misleading in his letter when citing all of those really cool guidelines in the first page or two, because those guidelines are meant for the state to come up with their decision if they're going to issue the Pell, which obviously they did, because if they didn't, we wouldn't be here. Not for the ZBA. That's not the guidelines for the ZBA. Throughout his entire letter, he also uses outdated plans. I think David, someone might have brought it up. So, for example, in his letter, he's using the plan to the right, which is stamped 9/7/23, not our newest plan, where he was referring to the fact that we didn't have parking lot spaces for an Uber or for package deliveries. Well, we have it. And why do we have it? Through our review. Through Stantec, through people asking questions. Do you have another one there? You've looked at this so many times. So he used this one here, again, 9/7/23, and this was in regards to his comment on the dumpster, which is, if he had the new plan, the dumpster is shown here, located here, and you can see how different this plan is. The old plan literally had all parking lot spaces on that side, no landscaping, that the big wall with the stairs, and the new plan, there's no parking spaces, and that's all landscaping.
That's the most updated one.
I'd like to answer that with that, but that might throw me off my...
Yeah, we can go back to that.
We'll come back to that one. Was that it for those plans, David?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Open space. Mr. Hill states many times in his letter that there's a lack of open space on nearby property or our own property. He also goes on the fear-mongering, which is why I use that word, to talk about how kids, how much it affects them mentally. I will tell you that if we want to get into that, Mr. Marchand probably has 100 different studies that show the mental problems that kids have who don't have affordable housing to live in. But that's, again, we'll save that one. He clearly did not study our plan or the area when making these statements. We have provided a play area, and we have approximately 70% open space for our project. The Memorial School, which includes fields, athletic courts, and a playground, is located just 0.3 miles away from the site, all connected through sidewalks. And the building that we're standing in right now, the Newtown Library, which is only 0.5 miles away, as we know, has a playground and has fields, once again, connected by sidewalks. I think we had a slide. I don't think people really need to see that because everyone actually knows that he didn't know what he was talking about. So, thank you, David. Vehicular access. Many 40Bs and non-40B projects have been built across the state and in towns, in this town, with single access driveways, including 149 Main Street. I'm not going to list it, but I think I've already made a list of a minimum of 15 projects in Upton with single access, and I certainly know at least the first 9 because I built them. Okay? So this is not uncommon. The Upton Fire Department has been satisfied with our access, in fact, as we all know, by dropping that 5th story, by cleaning up the parking, by using the accurate plan and showing that we had no more parking on those sides. That made everybody happy, including the fact that we had the approved swept path analysis done, professionally done, which was completed based upon the largest firefighting vehicle used in the town of Upton. Mr. Hill claims that we did not provide a site distance diagram. I think you can see we did, because Stantec was very professional. Vanessa is beyond reproach from the standpoint of traffic and impact, and that's what we provided. Now, I don't know Mr. Hill, and I don't want to say things that I shouldn't say, but if you look at our plan, you can see where this car is located. 14.5 feet off the road, which of course, that's not arbitrary, that's the law. Now, either Mr. Hill is proving that he shouldn't be meddling in traffic, or he was misleading, because his drawing shows the arrow at least 2 times further back. That's all I'm going to say on that. So as you can see, we provided it. Stormwater. We've gone through 10 months of review and revisions with Stantec with respect to stormwater design and management. And if there's nothing else that we're going to all remember from this process, is that the number one thing the ZBA asked us for was, you say it, Bill.
Water.
Thank you.
Everyone's concern was water.
Okay. It's been the number one concern, and it's been our number one concern. We've come to a plan that is satisfactory to Stantec, and it wasn't something that was rubber stamped. We all know. We went back and forth and revised that plan, I don't even know how many times, probably 5 times. And we believe that this plan goes above and beyond what is required, and we know we're happy with it. Waste management. It's certainly a better sanitation practice to have waste taken outside than to remain in buildings, as Mr. Hill suggested. All units will have garbage disposals, and there will be more trash capacity per person at 47 Main than 149 Main, which we have never had a problem. And that's the picture. That is 149 Main's trash. Certainly doesn't look rat infested, doesn't look like there's a problem, but what I want to make sure that everyone here understands is that we are going to have that times 2 at this new project. And 149 Main is 44 units, this is only 16 more units, and we're going to have double the trash and recycling capacity. So,
But you didn't label them ahead of time.
yeah, I'm sorry.
That was
Parking. Mr. Hill is, as we can see, is not a traffic engineer and is incorrect in his assertions. Stantec, based upon a review by its own professional traffic engineer, agreed that the parking we are proposing is appropriate for the project. Accordingly, we have full confidence in Vanessa and Stantec. And I know Ed might know the acronyms, but whatever the certification is that Jeffrey Dirk has, your guy had that same thing, and that is a very high-level traffic engineer, just to point that out.
PTOE.
PTOE, I have no idea what that means, but I know it was supposed to be important.
It's the PhD of traffic.
Okay, density, which I think is the biggest thing that he was pounding down in his opinion letter. Most 40B projects with building types like ours and in communities like ours aim to be somewhere between 15 to 30 units per acre. And I know Mr. Hill knows that because he knows 40B. The new MBTA communities regulations, which we talked about before, is going to require a minimum of by right density of 15 units per acre. Our site, which is 6.75 acres, now with our 60 units that we reduced, because we were at 68, we are now at 8.8 units per acre. I'm not connecting the dots to what he was saying. And we now actually have an even lower density than 149 Main, because 149 was a little bit over 10. Still very low, but a little over 10. To further support our project's density, I know this isn't necessarily relevant because we are a Chapter 40B application, but I'd like to point out an interesting fact. This property is located in the SRA zone. In the SRA zone, had it not been a 40B application, any person here that wants to go and build in their own neighborhood, okay, they would be allowed to have a max building coverage of 30% of the property. Clearly at 30%, the town does not think that's too dense because It's in their bylaws, okay? Our building and our garages is just under 9%. So, in summary, I believe that 47 Main is designed to be a very high-quality 40B project in a very suitable location in downtown Upton that once completed, the entire community will be proud of. It's going to add 60 units to Upton's affordable housing stock, which is well below the state mandated 10% that we know. We're at 6.37 currently. What I'd like to say is, I think you can clearly tell I didn't think very highly of this letter. However, I think in the spirit of what I said earlier with my openness to work with anybody, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter who it is, there was actually 3 suggestions maybe in the letter that I thought did make some sense to incorporate into our project. None of these, however, were required by code, even though Mr. Hill made it look or sound to a layman that they would be code. They're not. Instead, we made these changes because it actually makes our project better, just like we try to do for the last 10 months. To highlight those, what we did do, David, you have the plan? No. Okay, so we added a detail, making sure that the sidewalk grades are 5% or less along the driveway. So it's not a code on the driveway, it's code in the parking lot, which of course we had that. But now we're going to make it all 5%. Because why not? It makes sense. We've moved the location of the newly added 6 electric car charging stations. I think that made a lot of sense. And the picture that I said was going to ruin my presentation was the access that's going to come to the back of the building to that dumpster. It's not necessary because it is a driveway, but we did add a walkway to lead from the building to the dumpster. So, thank you for listening to that. I'd like to turn, if the board has questions, or I'd like to turn it to Chris and to John Smolak on Zoom to go into the decision.
Okay. No, I'm just chuckling because when I got the letter, I made point per point, paragraph for paragraph, what you discussed, and it point for point was pretty much the same. It did seem like, especially like with the fire department stuff, that they were working off of the old stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that you worked with the neighbors and the fire department to make those changes as we've gone through this whole process. I commend the neighbors that have come out and had the gumption to talk to you and say, hey, we like this. So we took it as we take everything, and like you, the good suggestions, and then point to point for at least with me, I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like with the playground stuff. I mean, come on, there's a nice playground right up the street.
Well, yeah, we're going to have a playground too.
Yes, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our own.
Yeah. And the other thing is one thing that's really hard is, like, I support the historic commission and their vision stuff, but even if it was completely in the historic district, we don't have any approval process. You're not even requesting a waiver for anything on that because there are no rules. Across from me is a split level, which that's not really a historic building, but you know what? I bet in 50 years it will want to say this was a certain design for a certain time.
I'm going to save my split level plans for the future.
There you go. You know, they made an awful lot of them. But anyway, so thank you very much. If my only suggestion would be is if the neighbor that you had worked with and then seemed to change your mind, if after we do work out whatever we're going to work out here, is reconsider that, because I know some people just at the last, especially if it's last moment, it can just be a response.
Yep. I'm not overreacting at all. Like I said, the letter came out so strong, it appeared to me that they didn't want to talk to me anymore, so I just said, okay.
Yeah, and the hard thing is, our decisions generally have to stay on your property. I commend you for working with the neighbors for some other ideas, but Chris, am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, those conditions in the decision have been offered by the applicant.
So
I
therefore
don't think we would have standing to just offer those unless they were accepted by the applicant. So that was really as a more of a favor or an acceptance by the applicant more than a condition based on our decision
And
on whether we're going to deny or accept the project.
And I've
Bill,
talked
there was one other thing too, I just want to make sure that, I think you guys know, but maybe the public doesn't know, that if this project does get approved, this does give the town a 2-year safe harbor from other 40Bs. I think that David may have heard some comments at a select board meeting where, oh my God, this happens, they're just going to keep going and going. Well, they don't. I mean, first of all, there's a 2-year safe harbor, and the second thing is that this project really gets us very close to the 10%.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's endless for that. And the other thing that I think that we maybe have never really shown was all of the efforts through the new design and shrinking the building down. And then we had a meeting, pretty big meeting here with neighbors, and we went over colors and style of the building. Yes. So, I mean, I think it's pretty dramatic, okay? This is our original plan.
Right.
And this is what we're now at.
Right.
Much better.
Yeah. And something that's also very important for us all to understand, and I've tried to say this repeatedly, is with an acceptance, we get to put a lot of conditions in, which we have. Without an acceptance, he would most likely appeal it, and it would go to Mass Housing, and it wouldn't be the current plan, it could be the original plan, the taller one and the big. So that's a worry for us. We've talked about that, how important it is to get those conditions for those neighbors. I want to make sure that those happens. But anyways, thank you very much. Al, are you okay with turning it over to Chris? Yeah.
Well, I think just the order of operations, I think what might make sense is for the applicant to go over the waivers.
Yes,
Yeah,
We
why
have
don't we do that?
We have John Smollett on Zoom, who's going to take the lead on that. John, are you there?
Oh, you have to, yeah, it was like 43 pages. I was like, I
Yes, I'm
wasn't burning through that much ink before even on this.
So that's maybe exhibit 3.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yep, we got it.
Okay, great. Good evening, Mr. Chair and other members of the board. Just for the record, my name is John Smollett, from Smollett and Vaughan. I, first of all, want to thank you for accommodating scheduling for this evening. And what I just intended to do, I know the board at its last meeting touched upon the waivers. I didn't intend to, unless the board wants us to go into huge detail in terms of each of these waivers, but we're happy to do so where there's a question or comment on them. I'm just scrolling down the decision myself just to go through them. But basically, as you see in the draft decision, Exhibit B includes all the waivers that were requested by the applicant, and Attorney Alphen has taken our original waiver list and has done a good job of creating a more concise summary of each of the requested waivers. And as a general comment in terms of waivers, the waivers can really be broken down into two types. The first are the more substantive waivers related to dimensional requirements, as an example. And the second set of waivers are what we call more administrative in nature. And what we mean by that is that the bylaw, for example, the zoning bylaw, includes many references to the fact that no project can proceed unless in compliance with the zoning bylaws. But when we have waivers under 40B, that zoning compliance is modified by the zoning waivers, which the Board of Appeals grants. And so the first waiver request is an example of that type of administrative waiver, where the zoning bylaw provision requires compliance with the zoning bylaw. And we're okay with that, except that the building commissioner will enforce that zoning bylaw as modified by the waiver if the board decides to grant the same. So just going into the use and dimensional waivers, Article 3, Section 300-3.1, Table of Principal Uses. This section prohibits multifamily residential use and other potential accessory uses in the applicable zoning district. And so we're requesting a waiver to permit the use of the property for, as proposed, 60 multifamily residential rental units, along with the accessory uses that you've already heard about. Just scrolling down further in terms of accessory uses and structures, again, this section prohibits 300-3.2 prohibits certain accessory uses in the applicable zoning district. And so we've requested a waiver to allow for all the amenities that we're proposing as what we would consider as accessory uses. So those were the purposes of those waivers. And in terms of dimensional regulations, the only, well, first of all, under Article 4, there's a general proposition that no uses or structures are allowed unless they're in compliance with the zoning bylaw. And so in the event that the board grants waivers, we have to adjust that. And that's another example of an administrative waiver, where we're asking the board to approve this subject to the a waiver of the dimensional regulations subject to those waivers that the board ultimately grants. And then in terms of the meat of the dimensional regulations, the table of dimensional requirements, the applicant complies with all the dimensional requirements except for building height and stories, which you've heard and which we've discussed in the past. Going down further, off-street parking, we sort of identified a waiver to allow for 93 parking spaces or 1.55 parking spaces per unit. And so for parking, we're just requesting the approval of those 93 parking spaces for the project in general terms. And again, I'll stop right here and just mention the fact that a lot of these waivers that we're requesting are very similar to the waivers that we had requested for 149 Main back in 2018. But we certainly acknowledge that every project is different. But just to let you know that the waivers that have been requested aren't out of the ordinary from what the board has granted in the past. In terms of just going quickly to signage, we've requested a waiver to allow for certain permanent signs that are identified for temporary on-site advertising for the lease of a dwelling, also a temporary non-illuminated construction sign. That would be in place from commencement until completion of construction. Next is Article 7, special residential regulations. And again, let me know if you wanted to discuss any detail, but this is a basic rate of development bylaw, which seems to envision projects, but it looks like it could apply to multifamily projects. And we're just asking for a waiver of that rate of development bylaw, which is really hard to impose on a multifamily building. Next, Article 7, townhouses and garden apartments. This provision establishes rights to build townhouses and garden apartments, which include minimum land area requirements, which really doesn't work for our project. So that's the reason for that requested waiver. And then number 10 was the administration procedures. Basically, again, this is a provision that provides that no project can be used or constructed unless accepted in accordance with the bylaws. And so we're requesting a waiver to the limited extent that to allow the Building Commission to enforce the zoning bylaws as modified by the waivers that the Board of Appeals grants. Again, an administrative type waiver. Article 9, site plan review. Basically, we've gone over a site plan review process over the last 10 months. And so, again, we're requesting a waiver from the formal requirements of site plan review. And then we're moving in quickly to the general bylaws, the earth removal bylaw. And to the extent that we're not exempt, the earth removal bylaw requires a permit from removal, but there's a condition within the decision itself which requires us to calculate the earth volumes as part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is under condition 4B32, I believe. So in other words, we're not requesting we're requesting a waiver from the earth removal permit, but we're mindful of the fact that we're going to have to follow procedures with respect to any earth movement. Then the Upton general bylaws in terms of sewer connections and discharges and so on. The comprehensive permit is intended to be a single consolidated permit, subsuming other local permits through the authority of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so we're just asking for the approval of the sewer connection. We'll certainly follow the DPW requirements.
And John, if I can just interrupt there, you're not asking for a waiver on any fees, connection fees, is that correct?
I thought
Well, I
on
think
the
that-
apartments they are.
On the affordable units, we are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we should probably make that clear?
Yeah.
For the record, Ed Marchand, Chapter 40B advisor. There has been discussion with the town to request a waiver of 50% only on the affordable units. That was agreed to on 149 Main. We hope that we can get the same benefit for this development.
Okay, so maybe we should just amend that, because I think that that may be in the decision itself, but we should amend that portion as a waiver to make that point clear. That's pretty typical. A lot of towns waive it altogether for the affordable units. Some towns don't waive it at all, so the middle ground is a 50%. I think that's fair. If that's what the precedent has been in other projects, I think that that's reasonable and makes sense.
Yeah. We've done it before. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. And next is just the removal of trees, paved public shade trees. And it's basically allowing us to remove trees that might be shown to be within a right-of-way on our site plan. And so we're just requesting that that be waived, given the fact that there's been extensive review on the same with respect to this project. Next is the wetlands protection bylaw and regulations. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, and so we've been asked to sort of identify which areas of the local bylaw that we would not be able to comply with. Keep in mind, as Mr. Loberser has indicated, we are currently before the Conservation Commission with a notice of intent that's being reviewed under the State Wetlands Protection Act only, and that process is proceeding well. And the waivers that we're looking for under the local wetlands bylaw is basically related to no disturb and no build zones, which is typical in the local zoning bylaw, and where these waivers are typically waived. So these regulations are typically waived. So we've requested a waiver from the local bylaw and the regulations. And as you know, in the middle of as I said, we're in the middle of the Conservation Commission review with a notice of intent. And the waivers requested are those related to the local bylaw calling for a waiver of a 30-foot no disturb zone and the 50-foot residential no build zone. And there's a local bylaw has created jurisdiction over certain isolated vegetated wetlands, given that we're working near them but not in them. And then there's also a provision related to climate resiliency, which is a very broad regulation, and it's not clear exactly what would be otherwise required. So we've requested a waiver from that as well. And lastly, the local bylaw includes the possibility of a wildlife evaluation. The state wetlands protection regulations already include a wildlife habitat evaluation, but at a much higher level in terms of larger area before one is required. And so we think that in this circumstance, it's not necessary to undertake a wildlife evaluation. And again, all of these wetland resources are being reviewed under the guise of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the regulations, and peer reviewed as well. Next is Board of Health rules and regulations. There's I guess sort of an unusual Board of Health regulation regarding inspection of fill and procedures with respect to fill being brought onto the site. And we've requested the waiver simply because of the fact that the applicant is assuring that any fill brought onto the site will be clean anyway. It's just, again, trying to consolidate the process and procedures through this comprehensive permit. And that's the list of the waivers. There was one that was denied, and that was proposed to be denied. And that's simply related to special permits. And under the 40B rules, special permits aren't required to be waived. So my understanding is that's the basis for Attorney Alvin's recommendation for denial of that waiver. And we're okay with that.
Thank you.
So that was a good summary, and, as Attorney Smolak mentioned, a lot of these waivers are sort of waivers needed in order to have the project happen, that actually make the project better, considering the size of the project, and sections of that don't actually apply because it's a 40B project and all the authorities with the ZBA, of course.
Thank you very much. Procedurally, Mike, where are we? Are you happy with, I'm assuming you went through this with Chris too, and you're happy you've got it?
Yeah, I've certainly gone through the waiver a number of times at this point. I have no concerns regarding what was requested. But at this point, I would offer to the board if you have, I know we just went through each one of them. I know we just went through each one of them one by one, but if the board has comments, questions, concerns about any of them, obviously now would be a great time to address them.
Yeah, in fact, Bob Butler is another member. He's currently out of state, which next meeting I'll be out of state. Bob, I wanted to check with you and Eric. Did you have questions, concerns about the specifics? I hope you received it in the email.
I did not have any concerns on any of the waivers.
I didn't have any concerns. My only question was just clarification, going back to the waiver requests from May. I believe it said 92 parking spaces, 22 of those being garage spaces, and this is 93 with 23 garage spaces. That's been updated since the May request.
What's the correct number currently?
Yeah, how many parking spaces do you have? 92 or 93?
And how many are garages?
There are 93 total parking spaces. There are, among those 93 units, there are 23 garage spaces. There are actually 24 garage bays. One of those bays will be dedicated to covered bicycle parking.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns that we have about this whole thing?
No.
One thing I've always done at every one of these meetings is made sure that the public has an opportunity to speak, and I want to continue that practice. While I enjoyed the movie Groundhog Day, I don't want to repeat. If you have something new, something pertinent, I would, and if you're concerned or whatever, your input has only made this project better. So if you have something you'd like to speak, you have something new or something, this week will most likely be, actually we have to legally close up the hearing anyways, the public hearing. So if you would like to make a comment, I invite you to come up and speak at this time. Yes, come on up to the mic, ma'am. Can you state your name and address for Amy?
Eileen Raggerton, 21 Whitney Lane. Wow, this is a first for me after being in Upton for 42 years. I just wanted to verify, for some reason I have in my mind that the fencing and or shrubbery that's going to go along the backyards of the residents of Whitney Lane. My lot, 21 Whitney, is a pie-shaped lot that ends before, some footage before where the fencing is shown. Can you just assure me that I'm not reading the plan incorrectly and that the fencing and shrubbery will in fact go behind my yard? Or does it stop? It appeared to me to stop.
Yeah, it's possible. Mike, would be able to pull up the most
Pull it
recent
up.
plan.
The most, the one you sent today?
Yeah, yes, most recent.
Great question, thank you. We'll pull that up on the computer in a second.
There's no
By the way, Mr. Humes, who works for the gas company, like the big transmission plant, he was working this afternoon, and they had a blowout right in the neighborhood. And because it's a rather delicate situation, both police and fire are up there, and he was unable to leave. Fortunately, there is a rule that allows, if he watches the recording of the meeting, he's allowed to vote. So I just wanted to, he sends his apologies, but when you work with 2-foot pipelines at 800 PSI, strange things can happen. Is it coming up?
It says it's shared on my computer, but it's not.
No, mine, it's mine.
It's not.
So it's an excellent question.
Is that a paper copy there?
Yeah, it's a paper copy right here.
But is it a new one or an old one?
That's new, yeah, that's most recent.
Can you just show her?
Yeah.
Someone come on up and show her.
Come on.
You know, we used to only have paper copies.
Yeah. I remember on the TIP project, the DPW director went down to a person's house with all the blueprints and put them on the hood and walked her through her property and showed her everything. And then we had the public meeting, and she's like, there hasn't been enough information. And they're like, they came to your house personally.
Yes, yeah.
That person's no longer with us, rest in peace, but it's just funny. It's like,
Yeah, we won't be touching anything. So, yeah.
good.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there any other question or that anyone else has that could clarify? Because I think that was very helpful. Come on up, madam. If you don't mind, state your name and your address, nice and loud in the mic for Amy.
I'm Joy Foster. I live at 14 Whitney Lane, and this is the first for me. I've been in town 43 years. And Kevin, this I'm addressing to you. On one of the first meetings, you said, there's plenty of shopping. I request that you look into building either, my preference is Market Basket, or a combo, Market Basket and Trader Joe's along Route 40. And I think you have everyone's vote here. Who wants a Market Basket and Trader Joe's?
I was just at a brand new one in Grafton.
And I might like the project better. Right now, I have.
Okay.
Well, that's not be interesting, because we have all land on one side.
You have plenty of land on that.
I would say the Grafton Market Basket is amazing.
Shrewsbury.
No?
It's Shrewsbury.
I thought it was on just on the line.
It feels like Grafton, but it's Shrewsbury.
Oh, okay.
And there is a Trader Joe's going in Milford. It's been
I'm not sure. All right. Welcome.
Marcia Keselowski, 10 Whitney Lane. I actually have two kind of comments. One is on the trees. I know that there was some discussion with neighbors about leaving trees for a screen, and I didn't see that reflected in the waiver. So I can't put 2 and 2 together and figure out if that's included, if that's going to be lost.
Yeah, it's not in the waiver list, it's in the plan set. So he's committing to that landscape planning, that this, if you want to come up and take a look at it.
Okay.
He's committing to that set.
So if it's in the plan set,
He has to.
it's not, okay, it's not omitted by the waiver. And the other thing is, I don't know about anyone else, but I had trouble going over the waivers because it kept referring to the special permit for additional information. And I'm not sure what we're going to go over next, but I'd like to put 2 and 2 together to make sure things tie up. And I don't know if that can be done, but I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a big document, it's 43 pages long. So it is big and it is confusing. But anyways, thank you.
And just to add to that point, I think the reference is that the waivers are granted, but subject to the conditions of the comprehensive permit. That's to protect the town and the abutters so that they're not going to say, we have this waiver, we can do whatever we want on this particular issue. It's subject to the conditions in there, including a condition that the trees are maintained in perpetuity and all that jazz.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dick Kennedy, 22 Hazeltine. I was under the assumption that the waivers would be spoken to and there would be some like accounting done for why they make, each one's required to make the project feasible. And so it almost sounds like it's an all or nothing, and it can't be an all or nothing because some of them are administrative and.
You want to speak to this? I mean,
Yeah, I don't
they're,
think that-
they're highly technical. So Chris, this document was actually written by Chris, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was, I used the waiver list drafted by the applicants, and the applicants and the engineer, which was peer reviewed the waivers, and they didn't say that any of the waivers should be denied for any reason, and they didn't say that any of the waivers shouldn't have been there in order to make the project happen. What you're talking about is feasibility, you're talking about economics. That's not part of the analysis at all. That's not part of the board's analysis. We are looking and seeing if there's a local concern or not. If there are, we could have a reason to deny a waiver, but at this point in time, we don't have any reason to deny any of these waivers, and they're required in order to build the project. Not necessarily build the project to be economic, but in order to build the project that they're proposing.
All right. And the only other comment I have, well, I have like more proof here that I know you don't want to see, but of what the water condition is in the neighborhood on a project that was approved, that when they dug, they hit water right away. And, then they had to deal with it, right? But I think it all gets redirected under 140, and who knows where it's going to go. And if you look at the civil engineer's review for the Comcom, one thing she did say was, this town needs to find out what the flow is going out of those pipes, because it's backing up more and more. They're either clogged or something's going on, but
I actually
it's
was fortunate-
crazy to keep.
I was fortunate that she was out in front of my house. And anytime I had someone in an orange vest running around in front of my new construction site, I wanted to know what's going on. And I happened to have about a half-hour discussion with her. And she's legitimately concerned that some of the culverts and stuff under School Street have not been cleaned or maintained properly. And I think that that's a legitimate concern. Unfortunately, when a culvert is going under the street, who owns it, which is the town, is responsible for maintaining that. I think that's something I wanted to add to this process was asking.
How do we maintain it though? It's a state road, and we can't just go dig it up.
School Street is just a regular.
Yeah, but the ones on 140, crossing onto 140.
Right, all of
And
them.
even one of those egress from School Street goes across 140 and down behind.
And the state does have control over the culverts under 140, I believe. Is that correct, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I did go out to Kevin's house with the state DOT to look at the culverts. Up at Kevin's house, the amount of water coming through the culvert, in all honesty, most of it wasn't coming from where this project is. From Kevin's house all the way up to Fisk Ave, all of those culverts on 140, which is impermeable, all of that water is collecting and coming into that culvert system. If you want to know where it all goes, my daughter's on Station Street, and you can see the stream right behind her house. All these topographies, they're valleys, so the water is going to go to the lowest point no matter what we do. The question is do we do it without increasing the water problems that already exist? I can't guarantee that we solve people's water problem, but as Kevin said and everyone else has said, you've all listened and listened well. The number one concern is water. This is not going to increase the water coming down. Hopefully, it will manage it and get it underground. They have to catch it and release it within, 48 hours in those ponds?
There's all kinds of formulas for it.
Yeah, and then there's, as you know, we spent a lot of time on the water. you're right to be concerned, and I'm concerned too. But part of this process I would like to see is a letter going out to the DPW to take a look at those culverts and get them cleaned. I know the one at my house is probably 90% blocked, and I think Bill's here and he's heard me say that. Right, Bill? So it's nice to have someone from the DPW hear that. And they're receptive. It's just a matter of time and money. There's a couple big ones across School Street that go down to 140, and they can't be left there forever without maintenance. So I concur with you there. Thank you.
Craig Winefuss, 8 Hazeltine Road. I have heard rumors of people using questionable fill in other projects in Upton. I won't name which projects they were, but being that this water is going to be feeding into a zone 2, which is the drinking water, I think it might be wise to keep that bylaw in place so that the Board of Health can in fact examine the fill, just because I've heard of very questionable fill being used in past projects, so that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah.
Who are you getting your fill from?
Kimball and Pine.
Kimball and Pine, okay. I don't know where they're currently digging, but I think that having it demanded to be clean, Mike, is there any other mechanism, and we can say it's got to be clean, without going over crazy? Is there any way that we can assure that it's clean, that would be appropriate? And Chris, I can ask you the same question.
This is not my wheelhouse as far as soils and testing soils, but it's my understanding that soil can be tested. Whether or not that's something we can require here, I kick that to Attorney Alphen.
Well, there's one way to pretty much assure it. They're not digging from brown sites.
Right, that, Bill. I've been in town long enough. I'm pretty sure that bylaw started happening. I know the project, but it was really because to save money, they brought in tens of thousands of yards of material that was urban fill from the big dig. Yeah. And that's what created this mess. I mean, all the stuff that Kimball and Pine do, they're out of virgin sand pits in Blackstone and Douglas. So it's a very different.
I would be very comfortable coming from a virgin sand pit. I would not be comfortable with a brownstone or something.
Yeah, we don't take brownstone.
Is that something we can insert as a condition? If they're willing to commit to that, just to make that.
Okay. Thank you. That was a good question, good comment. Yes, sir.
David Brooks, 3 Cranberry Circle. I had a question prepared, a comment prepared that was tangential, but the gentleman who talked about the water system makes it more direct. Kevin, you've said that a lot of the people in residence will be seniors, you expect? Yeah. So those seniors, I expect, will want to use the sidewalk to this water. This is a point made by the Economic Development Committee in their comments in December. Will be wanting to use the sidewalk, or able to use the sidewalk to the businesses in town, either downtown or West Upton. So I just want anybody who's going to be in the 75% Main Street tip review, put a pin in that to make sure that that sidewalk remains accessible in both directions. And also, since I'm talking about the tip review, this comment about drainage and the culverts, that should really be make sure that the state knows the issue and the extra buildings as part of the 75% review when it happens.
I have no problem with that.
Not for action for you, but whoever's in here, I'm sure you will be.
I can tell you the DOT has been out. It was like one of the most, remember we had that like 8-inch rainstorm? It was that day that Kevin and I and DOT were out. Actually, 2 people from DOT and the state senator's aide was out looking at the water. Surprisingly little was flowing in from this property. It was just coming into the street. It's impervious. The water doesn't get into it. It's just coming from there.
I believe her name is Mary, right? The review
Yes.
engineer? Yes. Yeah. So we actually didn't have any knowledge that she was going to go onto the site the 2 times, which was completely fine. But she confirmed at the last meeting that that water was not really leaving our property and going across the street to Kevin's property.
Yeah.
And Stantec, obviously, as you know, did as well independently.
Yeah, I think the system that you've worked out with Pickering, and I do hope you continue with either one of those plans. Well, we'll make it a condition, but I think that right now they've got a problem because their drainage system wasn't adequate or even properly designed. I think some of the drains are higher than the puddles, so they're not going to drain out in the wrong way. Chris, where are we and where do we need to go from here?
Well, I think two things we can do. We can either decide that we have all the information and close the public hearing and then at a separate time go over the decision, or we can go over the decision right now. I'm thinking as far as substance goes between me and the applicant, the only item I thought was outstanding that I wanted to have a public conversation about was a condition related to a bus stop. And I wanted the board to, maybe the applicant could address that and then the board could give some input about that issue.
Yeah, it's a really easy, short conversation, because I did go over with David today. We're going to provide a location for the bus stop. Okay. We have it on a plan, I believe.
Yeah, we've submitted a plan. I just sent it to Mike. We worked on it today, so we selected an area where we want to put a pad down. And kids will come, we have a pad, bus comes, and they would come. So it would be on our property. And Mike, I know.
Yeah, I was hoping to keep it off of the state taking part so that we don't have to go through that part. We have enough room to be able to do it on our property.
Yes, I CC'd you too, Chris. It was literally, I think I sent it like 5 o'clock. Yeah, so I apologize. It took us a little bit.
No, I'm glad that that's resolved. Other than that issue.
Right there right there is where we were proposing to put it.
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, big enough to say.
Sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
Other than that issue, there isn't anything of substance that I felt that needed to be discussed at the public hearing unless board members had certain conditions that they wanted to talk about. This was a document that I proposed, and quite frankly, the applicant did not have that many substantive revisions to my original decision. There were some things that they sort of tracked back and didn't like, but I fought for the town and for the board to make sure that those remained, and eventually the applicant agreed to many of our substantive conditions. So I thought it was a very good, good process of drafting this decision.
Okay. Gentlemen, sir, you want to come up and speak? Sorry, I didn't see you raise your hand, so my apologies for not catching you.
No. Pat Hurley, 13 Whitney Lane. I just wanted to reference something that Kevin had talked about earlier. The response to the Hill document was terrific. Is there a similar one that was for the ecosystems that was done by the Conservation Commission?
For conservation, we will be submitting in writing. Obviously, we responded. If you've watched the meeting, it's online. We gave our response there. We're pretty similar.
Sorry, I didn't see it. All I saw was the report from Ecosystems.
Oh, we haven't put it in writing yet, just obviously it was a busy weekend.
Okay, that's all I'm asking about.
That will be submitted. I will phase that over to conservation.
And at the next Conservation Commission meeting, that will be addressed?
They'll have that.
Yeah, they'll have that by then, next week. So.
I appreciate
and
that.
They asked for maybe two little modifications to the plan. I think it was one area they asked for a double siltation fence, which of course is not a problem. And I think that Mary asked for a couple of additional spot grades on the top of one of the berms.
Okay.
Which I believe Peter's finished that one.
Yes, all the plans are in there. The minor changes Concom had asked for. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we're kind of in an awkward spot with this. We haven't received it. If we close the meeting, can we even discuss something that comes in after the meeting's closed?
No, but I'm not concerned about it because the Conservation Commission is going to issue their own order of conditions.
Perfect.
And that's going to have conditions, and they're still going to have to comply with those conditions. Those conditions do not need to be part of the ZBA's decision.
Excellent.
Steve Rackerton, 21 Whitney Lane. Just a question about whether or not our senior van would be able to pull in and pick people up in front of the building and then turn around and come back out. So the bus stop you were talking about was not necessarily for the senior.
No.
Thank you for your concern.
So someone just on the Teams meeting wanted to offer a comment.
Sure. Call them up and just make sure we put their name and who they are. Hi.
Hi, I'm Megan Lacasse at 6 School Street. I just wanted to comment about the pesticides and herbicides. I saw it in the permit, and I'm fine with the use of them. My property, I've been trying to make really pollinator friendly, and I just wanted to make sure that we can use ones that don't hurt the local pollinators. Like, there are a lot of clean options out there, and, you know, keep spraying further from the abutters whenever possible. But that's all I really had.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The no mow May. Oh my God, my lawn is crazy. I don't know how to address that. Kevin, I'm assuming you're gonna hire someone for that?
We do. We use a professional company that does all of our landscaping.
Okay, and I know, funny, the professionals have to follow a tighter set of rules than the regular homeowners. But please just ask them to be aware of the weather on that particular day, which way the wind's blowing, or if there's a day that's not a lot windy, the herbicide or whatever you use will stay on your property a little better. What are your thoughts? Because you're someone I lean on.
I don't have any further questions. In terms of discussing the decision, it'd be great if we could wait until we had Bob, so we've got the four of us.
I concur with that, but I still think, do we have to close the public? Can we discuss it once we close can the board still discuss things? Just, I mean, it's hefty.
Yeah.
Can we do that after we close the public hearing?
Of course. So after the close of the public hearing, the board has 40 days to file a decision with the town clerk's office. So it would have to be between now and 40 days from now that we have to finalize a decision that gets filed with the town clerk.
Okay. All right, well, I think everyone's had a chance. How about a motion? Would it be appropriate for a motion to close the public hearing at this point? Yes, Mark?
One more comment on seniors.
Yes.
One was, I believe there's a rule that the van cannot go up a driveway, so you might want to check on that.
Okay, that could be something that we work out with the town. If they have enough customers, I'm sure they'll come.
Well, I just wanted to mention that it might be worth checking. And also, the driveway is so steep and so long. Could you consider putting in a little bench along the way so that on a 90-degree day, someone might be able to sit for a few minutes and recover?
That's a reasonable question. Just so you know, the 5% grade is a pretty reasonable grade for a driveway. But it is a long driveway, and if it is a senior, if it's a busy building with a lot of seniors, it's not a bad idea to throw a bench in there. That's not a bad idea. Would you be okay with that, Kevin? So have an appropriate bench, maybe at the halfway.
Yeah, surely we don't have a problem with that. We have looked at a location, and obviously in the future, we always try to make our tenants as happy as possible because we don't want anybody to leave anyway. So yeah, it is probably an amenity we would add.
Okay.
I'm surely not going to have a problem with doing.
Okay. You know what? Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I just wrote a letter, but somebody recommended I come down and speak. When the contractor goes to get the general construction permit, it's right at the end. There's some new regulations that have places for historical and cultural resources. I know the Mass Historical Commission has weighed in,
yes,
but you haven't had a cultural resource weigh in, and that's the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. The last project that I worked with here in town, Governor's Landing, it occurred to the construction people that at the very end, the TIPO steps in, and there are cultural features. And I have to say, Upton is known widely in the area for having a lot of cultural features. Then this would delay everything, is my understanding of how it works. I would just strongly recommend that a cultural survey gets done and people weigh in before rather than after. But of course, you can wait till the very end. And
we're not waiting till the very end. This is the very end. Legally, we have to close it up.
You have to get a permit, though.
What?
You do have to get a permit.
Well, certainly, if there's any sort of state permits that they need, they're still required for that. They're not being waived. The board-
And you can wait till the end. That's the legal process to do it. What happens is things can get delayed, that's all. The previous construction people decided to work with the cultural resource person. They worked with her on a survey, and they worked with her to redesign things, that's all.
We've been here for 10 months.
Mr. Chair, clarify, if we could just get the speaker's name.
Kathy Taylor, 14 Pine Street.
And then I think, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're just suggesting that beyond, I don't mean to, if I'm wrong, please correct me, I think you're just suggesting that beyond this process, that they pursue that sooner rather than later.
That is true.
Okay. Not, so she's not offering it as,
Condition.
stopping it right now and requiring it.
Yes, that was the impression I was getting. So thank you for helping
And
clarify that.
I did write a letter to Joe and Brett Seamus and various other people. It's not going to stop the project, but it could delay the project, that's all. And the cultural resources do have to be taken under consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like you're the last one, Madame.
Linda Gay, 9 Fowler Street. Did I miss the list of conditions that go with the permit?
Yeah.
I did?
Yes.
Okay. And did it include a condition around what the building looks like?
It was in the, we did discussing what the building looked like.
Where'd you end up? I'm sorry, it was late.
Most of the people preferred the current rendition to the original. Fair statement, folks?
Yes. But we didn't talk about revisiting it
No.
No.
We
completely.
already visited it several times.
You don't care that it doesn't look at all historical in the middle of the district?
Yeah, but some points where it's
It looks better than it did.
Yes.
Yeah. They
still
did
did
a
a lot
big
to it
budget.
to make it look better.
Okay. Well, if you went on his website, you'd actually see the building that he's advertising.
We see, no.
Ma'am,
They're showing
ma'am.
that.
Okay.
When you miss a chunk of the meeting.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible when people die and you miss a chunk of a meeting.
Please.
It's terrible.
Look,
So,
we actually
thank you
have had
so
a
much.
really friendly discussion
Thank you so
about
much.
that.
I know, it's been a great discussion. Great discussion. Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Just a learning question.
And you know what? I learned too, so it's
Okay. Maureen Byrne, 158 West Fir Road. I have a quick question on the waiving fees for the sewer connection. And what is the criteria for doing that, halving the fees?
Very often in 40Bs, the town waives the fee only on the units that are affordable.
Okay.
So not the whole project, I think.
That makes sense, okay.
Like 45 of them would
And
be
is
regular.
the fee for each unit or for just the one? Okay, that makes sense, okay, thanks.
Having just paid $12,000
Yeah,
in these
no, I just
fees,
got
I'm
that.
very familiar with them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, great question. You ready for a motion?
Yep. I move that we close the public hearing for the application for 47 Main Street.
Bob, can I get a second from you? Bob Butler?
I second.
Okay, let's
Bob
take.
Butler seconds.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Bob, how do you vote? How do you vote on closing? Bill Andrews votes aye.
Eric Russell, aye.
Bob Butler, aye.
Okay, that closes the public hearing. It's been a fun 10 months. Honestly, I thought the first meeting I was going to get pitchforked and lynched. Anyways, all right, now.
Excuse me, Mr. Andrews, if
Yes.
I may.
Oh, yes.
I'd like a motion to close the selectmen's meeting. Second. All in favor? Unanimous at 7:44.
And can I thank
Thank
the
you.
selectmen for your statement earlier?
You're welcome.
I really wasn't expecting that. It was really a great statement, and well done, thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mikey.
All right, so.
We still need a.
Right, that's
sort of.
and you're in charge. And I'm gonna do it poolside in South Carolina. I'm gonna be. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to be intrusive. We have a second hearing. We have a start. I love your enthusiasm and that you're making community, but I need to be able to talk to Bob who's online. Bob, can you hear us?
Yes.
We're just confirming that we have the next meeting. We have one more meeting for tonight. We have to do. We're waiting for one attorney. Well, the meeting is what, the 21st? 21st. The 21st of August. And that will be the meeting where I'm remote and Eric and you can be in charge. But
And so what I'll do is the comments that we went over today, me and Mike will update the decision. I'll send it to all the board members so everybody can look at it before the 21st. And then at the 21st, we can go over the decision and if any board members has any comments about the decision, we can talk about it on the 21st. Okay. And then we get a finalized document the day after, and then we sign it the day after that.
okay. I'm comfortable with that. And frankly, we've been through the process enough times.
Oh, yeah, I know.
As long as that damn 36-inch door shows up.
It's coming.
I think we're waiting for one person, aren't we, Mike?
I mean, the appellant is present for the next hearing. I believe Mr. Kelly, the appeal is the property it affects, was, I believe I'd inform everybody we'd probably be starting at 8 o'clock for this.
Yeah.
So I know he was going to come by at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So we're just 10 minutes out.
Considering the impact that this could potentially have on this gentleman, I think in fairness, we told him 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think in fairness, we should at least wait for that. Rick, I did read your letter. We're going to take it into evidence, but we don't generally read letters out loud. We just take it in. We all read it. We get the emails. It's a big stack. I mean, so we all have read it, but we just take it into evidence. I would make other comments, but I really don't want to make any comments until we have everyone here.
We can, if the appellant is okay, we do have some other business, I believe, on the agenda we could talk about.
Yes, we do. Yes, if you don't mind, we get. Just the rule changes.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to talk about.
So, Bob, something I've mentioned in the past, and Eric, you've probably heard me complain, is there was a couple of rule changes. One was the fee plus.
So the fee was changed. We did change all the town permit fees to be more in line with other towns. We were charging per square foot, whereas every other town charges per cost of the project. So we changed that. That was voted by the Board of Selectmen, and we also proposed changing the fee for the ZBA from $105 to $250 just to cover our costs.
Did we also get to the one about the mailing costs?
That was part of it. Talk about.
It's a discussion.
That got taken care of too?
No. That's a discussion that kind of needs to happen with the board.
Part of my discussion here is, right now, the state requirement is that everyone gets notified and all abutters get notified. How they get notified can be very inexpensive or very expensive. We currently are requiring certified return receipt mail, which is like $6 or $7 a pop. It's now 8. I've had abutters who, on some of the larger pieces of property, it's over $1,000 by the time they notify everybody. So what I was hoping to do is, we have to notify everybody. Right now, we put it into the hands of the person applying, and they have to prove it with the return for the green cards. What I'm proposing is that we do the notification, send it out regular mail, and then charge them the cost of that. So that instead of them having this astronomical bill of $8 per notification, they're paying basically for Amy's time, or whoever, if you get one of the seniors to do it, the price of the envelope, the price of the stamp, and the letter that goes out, and the price of the list from the abutter. And it would actually be a lot easier because the abutter, it's not the abutter, the appraiser, What's Val's? Assessor, there we go, I'm trying to think of what's Val's title. Val can actually print the labels out with, so when she gives the address, instead
She
of.
does now already, and she charges for that as well.
Right, it's like 20-something bucks, so it's not bad.
55 maybe.
But I didn't know,
Rick knows, he's just.
I didn't know how you felt about that, Bob, and you, Eric. I know that's been something I've harped on many, many times.
My only concern is, well, the value of using the certified mail with return receipt is then you've got physical evidence of notice if anybody comes and tries to challenge notice later.
Yep.
You've got a document showing that you got it. Do we have any other, any cheaper options that are still going to give us proof of delivery?
There are other options. I have not had time to look into them, but I know there are options that will, you can at least certify or get some sort of receipt confirming the mailing. I think there's even like a booklet scenario that you can, that gets verified by the post office. But I mean, if the board wants to sort of give us direction and sort of set formal policy going forward to allow for things other than certified mail, but with proof of mailing.
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, but we want some form of proof, but can it be less than that?
I mean, you don't just want. I would recommend against going regular mail. There's really no confirmation of receipt. There's no confirmation of sending either.
Even if you did a receipt that you sent it without having to have paid for the green cards, that would cut the cost in half.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be happy with that. I think that would be a fair thing. We'd have a receipt that it was sent. It meets state requirements. You just don't have to have the green card.
Why don't I research with the post office to see what the choice is, and we can
That's
have
fine.
that discussion at the next meeting.
Sounds fantastic to me. I was approached by one citizen who had to do a job for the that dealt with conservation. The cost of the job was $16,000. The cost of the engineering to get through, because they had to have a topographic site plan, by the time they went through all the requirements for the town, it was $32,000. The requirements for the town doubled the price of the project. And that was not a very happy citizen. So I'd rather listen to these people and try to help them out. Anyways, how are we doing for
Do you
time?
want to talk about?
And I was not able to complete, I'm sorry.
Minutes, yeah, well, that's,
I did not complete the minutes yet. I'm on page 24 of 25.
it's huge.
I want to talk about that just real quickly, and the board doesn't have to discuss this because it's not on the agenda, but we're wrapping up the 40B, and it's probably, I'm going to venture a guess that it is one of the most contentious items of note that has ever been before this board. And Amy's been great about just being super meticulous, understanding the importance of those minutes. But beyond that process, I mean, we're going to move towards more of just summary of discussion only, not transcripts. Summary of discussion only, and then the recording motions and votes and that sort of thing. Not necessarily the bare minimum, but
we tried that. We actually
More general.
Yeah, the pendulum's got to swing.
Well, and the thing is it is recorded, and it is on, thank you, Paul. It's recorded, and they're on YouTube forever and ever, so to be referenced.
And quickly then we'll move to the item because I believe everybody's here. I worked in Rhode Island for a little while previous to coming here, and there is a requirement for public hearings that you must hire a stenographer. For every zoning board, there was a stenographer in the room, so that was interesting. Anyway, I'm not suggesting that.
You know what?
I am, for any additional new large comprehensive permits that maybe the applicant can pay for this stenographer.
I'd be happy with that.
Just
We went from the absolute bare minimum on our minutes to, just gigantic transcripts. So, it sometimes simple and brevity is good. All right, I see, is there anyone else coming? Or I know what Jesse was going. Okay.
We have Bob and Michael both on for this, and I believe they're both voting members, correct?
Both of them are voting members. And Michael and Bob, thank you for your patience. Okay, this computer stuff is really good.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have just four members present.
Which is enough to do this. Last time we were here, we've gotten some records. We've since gotten a tremendous amount more records. So that, I think the delay is well worth it and makes it pretty clear. Do you want to speak first and we'll get this going? Wait. Yes, sir.
I just received today at about 10 o'clock an 80-page documentation, and by the time I got back from my work and took a look at it, I haven't had any time to look at this. So I'm looking for a continuation.
I'm assuming most of those are the records, but we got the assessor's records.
Everything except for the first 6 or 7 pages, which is my correspondence, correct.
Okay.
Well, I'll just interrupt and say we need the agreement from the appellant in order to do that. Unfortunately, the board can't just grant that in this case.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, so for the record, Adam Costa, me, Tom Rand Costa, representing the Marinos. I was here 6 or 8 weeks ago at the opening of the public hearing on this application. I'm not necessarily opposed to a further continuance. I recognize I need a vote of 4 out of 5 administrative appeal, and I only have 4 members, so effectively I now need a unanimous vote. So recognizing that I would like to make some progress tonight, it's been 8 weeks since we were last before you. As you said, we received a lot of documentation. I appreciate I would have liked to get this to you sooner than yesterday, late last evening in fact, but I've been sifting through the electronic records I received.
Mike shared it out. Was that the stuff you shared out?
Yes.
So Mike shared it out to the board members anyways.
It just sounds as if the owner of the property hasn't seen it until late yesterday, maybe hasn't had a chance to review it. So I can certainly appreciate that. But I do want to briefly walk through it. I'm not going to speak at length. I gave maybe a 20-minute presentation last time. I don't have that lengthy of a presentation, but I would like to take maybe 8 or 10 minutes to sort of walk through some of what I submitted to provide and help orient the board members, including those who are participating by Zoom, on what you've got here before you. So when we were before you back in May, we essentially advanced 2 arguments. The first argument was we don't believe the 99 Crockett Road residence is a lawful 2-family residence. If it's not lawful, then it can't suddenly become lawful and it can't continue to operate as a 2-family. The second argument we advanced is if you don't believe us, or you believe that there is evidence that it is lawful, even if it was lawful, even if it is lawful, it can lose that lawful non-conforming protection under both state law and your local bylaw if the use is discontinued for 2 years. So as a consequence of that meeting and some of the comments and questions that were raised by board members, I heard things like, what does the census data say? I heard a back and forth. In fact, I watched the YouTube video that was available at the meeting, and I included an excerpt on the second page of my letter of a bit of a back and forth between the town assessor who was present and you, Mr. Chairman, concerning records dating back to the 40s and representations that those records might have indicated that there was lawful 2-family use. So we made a public records request, I think within a week and a half or 2 weeks of that meeting. Your town clerk was heading out on vacation. It took a bit longer than usual, but we got all the documents, we've reviewed the documents, and we've selected the documents that we think are most relevant. We got a lot of information that wasn't particularly helpful one way or the other, so we didn't want to present all that. Probably 1,000 pages. We didn't give you 1,000 pages. We gave you about 75 pages of documentation, most of which are assessor's records. So let me talk about the 2 arguments that I had made last time and what we found that's new to advance those arguments. So the first argument to recall is that this is not a legal pre-existing non-conforming structure or non-conforming use. There's a misconception in the law, and lawyers appreciate it, many boards like yours appreciate it, but the public generally doesn't, that the definition of a non-conformity is something that simply doesn't conform. Well, that's 50% true, but to qualify as a pre-existing non-conforming structure or use, that structure or use needed to be lawful at the time that it commenced, at the time that the structure was built or the use commenced. It had to be lawful to begin with, and the concept of the non-conformity is that sometime after that point, it became unlawful because the zoning changed, or zoning was adopted if it didn't exist at the time. So what do we know here? We know here that this structure at 99 Crockett Road was constructed in 1942. I don't think there's any dispute. The assessor's records say that as well. In 1942, Upton didn't have a zoning bylaw. You didn't adopt zoning until 1958. And so what do we know about the zoning that got adopted in 1958? Well, we know, and in fact, Mr. Antonellis provided a staff memo to you today and included an excerpt, a 3-page excerpt from that 1958 zoning bylaw. It prohibited two-family use. So from the outset, your bylaw prohibited two-family use on this site. So the question was, okay, what about prior to 1958? From 1942 when it was constructed until 1958 when the zoning was adopted, prohibiting two-family use in this location, was it a lawful two-family structure? Your assessor seemed to indicate, and I walked away from this meeting 8 weeks ago saying, she seemed to indicate that she had a smoking gun somewhere, that there was some record that showed that it was a lawful two-family use. So we got 1,000 pages of records, we got probably 150 pages of assessor's records, and I have summarized for you, I went through them meticulously in the format they were provided to me, what they showed. And so here's what we found. We found that between 1947 and 1955, the residence on the Locust, the 99 Crockett Road property, was referred to as either a quote-unquote cottage or a quote-unquote house. From 56 to 65, already you're beyond the 1958 date when it became unlawful, but nevertheless, from 56 to 65, it was referred interchangeably as either a house or a camp or a cottage. From 66 to 75, same 3 terms. From 76 to 83, same 3 terms, except in 83 they actually called it one house. Not 2 houses, not one two-family house, just one house. Between 84 and 86, it's only a span of 3 years, is when the assessor's office began to use codes. And that was prevalent in Massachusetts. Sometime in the 80s, these codes began showing up on these classification books. And so what does the code say? Well, between 84 and 86, it was described as one family residence, and the code was R1. Now we know R1 is single family, and we know that not just because you have to believe me. When you actually look at other entries on the same pages I provided here, they show entries of R2 where it says next to it, 1 two-family structure. Well, that's not what this said. This said 1 family structure. Between 87 and 89, the code of 101 was used, which was a changeover from the R1. 101 meant single family, 104 meant two family. Again, don't have to believe me, you can look at the code books, you'll see some are referred to as 104 and they're two families. But it was referred to as one family and the code 101 was used. Between 90 and 95, it went back and forth. Some said 101, some said R1, but they all said one building. Then suddenly in 1996, for reasons that we don't know, I don't know, in 1996, suddenly the classification code changed from R1 or 101 to R2 or 104, which signifies a two-family structure. So if there was something in the records that we found, and we also got records from the building department that showed that in 1996 proper permits were pulled to convert the single to a two, well then that would defeat our argument because they got proper permits. The problem was there was no mechanism in 1996 to convert a single to a two, except for what exists in your bylaw today. What exists in your bylaw today is if you've got 80,000 square feet, that is twice the lot area required, you can get a special permit to convert a single to a two. Well, number one, this is a half-acre lot. Number two, there's no evidence of any special permit issuing, not in the registry of deeds records, not in the town building department records, not in the planning records. So it seems pretty straightforward to me, and I'm not faulting your assessor here. I mean, the law is clear. I represent assessors in the 3 dozen towns I represent. What do I tell assessors when they do assessments? Assess what you see. You go out there, you see two units. So in 1996, I don't doubt that the assessor went out there and might have seen 2 units, or in 98, or in 2000, or in 2002. The problem is they weren't 2 legal units. They somehow got illegally converted to a 2-family. So that's the first part of the argument. The second part of the argument is a bit simpler, and that is, even if you don't believe everything I just told you, what about this concept of 2-year discontinuance? And so I saw a few days ago, a week ago, that you got a further affidavit from Lisa Gibbs. Lisa was the former owner of the property. She resided there from 99 until 2023 when she sold the property, her and her now ex-husband, then husband. She indicated in her affidavit that she says, quote, "We used the property as a 2-family home during my ownership of the property." A bit vague, you know, I'm not doubting that at some point during the ownership it was used as a 2-family. The real question is, did you use it continuously with no 2-year gap over the 20+ years that you own the property? And so I've cited the 4 different things, and I've attached these exhibits, so again, you don't have to believe me, to indicate that it wasn't consistently used as a 2-family. Number one, the MLS listing, Ms. Gibbs and Mr. Gibbs' own MLS listing that was provided in 2023, has the following 3 separate statements. They appear in 3 different locations in the MLS listing. The first time it says, "Public record has it as a 2-family, current owners use it as a single family." That's the first reference on their own MLS listing. The second reference, it says, Public record is a two-family, current owners use it as a one-family, sold as is, where is, seller and agent make no representations or warranties. Well, as a lawyer, that's a giant red flag, right? And then the last one, under firm remarks, it says, public record has it as a two-family, owners use it as a one-family, buyer and agent please do their due diligence.
Yeah, another red flag.
Right? So that's the first concern. The second one is I reached out to Lisa Gibbs and to Michael Gibbs between these past two meetings. Lisa Gibbs said, please don't contact me again. I respected that. I have not contacted her again. Michael Gibbs responded to me, and I actually sent him an affidavit and said, this is what I believe the history was. There were all these gaps when you owned it in two-family use. And he wrote back to me, and I've actually provided a copy of his email, nothing to hide here. And his email to me said, I can't sign the affidavit as it's written because it has some inaccuracies. The house was used as a two-family during two periods, from 99 to 2007, and then again from 2018 until mid-2023. And that was more or less consistent with what we thought, which was that I think it was Mr. Gibbs or either his brother or his brother-in-law had resided there with them in a separate unit back in the early 2000s and then moved out. Then there was a gap of 12, 13, 14 years, and then they separated, Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs, in 2018, and at that point they began living in separate units until the time that they sold the property. But that's a gap of 12 or 13 years when it was not used as a two-family structure. We sought the census records, because you asked us to. And what do the census data show? We got it from the town clerk's office. For some reason, we only got records from 2006 forward, so I don't know if you didn't keep census data before that, but we got what we got. And what does it show? It shows from 2006 to 2023. Who are the occupants? Only Lisa Gibbs and Michael Gibbs. And in fact, the only thing that pops up is that Jessica Gibbs begins appearing in 2021. I believe that's their daughter. She probably reached the age of majority, and so the census started capturing her in 21 until they sold the property in 23. But again, period of over a decade. The only residents there were the Gibbs, who obviously were married and were residing together. And then the last point I have to make, and you can read these for yourself, I'm not going to read them aloud. We got letters from neighbors. Not as good of evidence as Mr. Gibbs himself saying I didn't use it as a two-family, but residents know what's going on. It's a small, densely populated lakefront community. They see people coming and going. They see one car versus two cars versus four cars, and they've all attested. We've got 8 separate letters that they didn't see any two-family use for most of the period of the Gibbs ownership. So again, we think the evidence is clear. It might have looked like a two-family. I saw some of the, Matterport, I think, is one of these 3D, you can walk online through the units, and there was data provided to this gentleman when he purchased the property. I don't doubt that. It looks to me inside like it's a two-family. I'm not disputing that. It has 2 kitchens, right? So I'm not blaming anybody. The problem is it was converted to a two-family illegally. There weren't proper permits for it. It wasn't a lawful two-family, and then it got abandoned for 12 years before the use resumed. So, bottom line is there's not a lot of flexibility here. The law is clear.
Yeah.
It doesn't qualify as a nonconformity, and it was discontinued.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the full extent of the records, because I know what I was sent, and I was like, everything I was sent was reasonably consistent. And I'm sure Pat was sent the same thing.
Yes.
But when you look at it over the period of time, that was the exception, not the rule. At least from my reading of it, is that it was listed as a single family more consistently for a longer period of time and prior to the imposition of zoning regulation. So that it can't be pre-existing non-conforming, it would just be not pre-existing, and it's been made non-conforming. So at least that's my opinion of the read. I don't think it's pleasurable news for you. I'm very hopeful that the state forces towns to be a little bit more friendly to putting in secondary apartments. I know the state's been talking about it a tremendous amount. Yes. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Nope.
Okay. Michael or Bob, and Eric too, do any of you want to chime in here? Because it's not the Bill Andrews show.
I think you summarized it up pretty well, Bill. I agree, based on all of the information that was sent us, and I've gone through it pretty detailed, that it appears to have always been a one-family home. and then illegally changed to a two-family. And then we have all the other bylaw provisions that kick in. So I think there's a pretty compelling argument here that it should be, a decision may need to be changed.
Okay. Michael, what are your thoughts? We can't hear you. You're muted, Mike. Ooh.
About that.
There we go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sure. Yeah, I was saying, I think there's pretty overwhelming evidence that it's not a two-family. I mean, it may be used as a two-family at some point, but that doesn't, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's a one family.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's that's one of the nice things about getting the whole package and seeing all the information in there. Eric, I want to make sure I reach out to you and check with you. Are you in the same mind?
I think the documents are perfectly clear, yeah. Attorney Costa raised this before as well. It is the burden of somebody who is claiming an exemption from the zoning bylaw to prove that they qualify for that. It wasn't up to Attorney Costa to prove all of this, but with all the documentation, it is extraordinarily clear, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sir, do you want to vote tonight, or do you want to wait for the fifth one?
So I'm comfortable proceeding tonight, as I said before, and I'll stand by it. If the owner is insistent that there be a continuance, and the board is willing to entertain that, I'm not going to jump out of my seat and object, but I think we've heard from 4 members that the evidence is sort of black and white. There's been an opportunity for the owner to submit evidence. I know that some evidence was submitted. We have that affidavit from Ms. Gibbs, but I'm not sure what can be pulled out of a hat that's going to contradict the public records, the hundreds of pages of public records that clearly show that this is not a two-family residence.
The affidavit just doesn't fill the gaps.
Yeah. Sir, I want to be fair to you, because 80 pages in a day is tough. But to be completely honest, when you get to see all the records, and it's pretty clear going far back that at some point there was a change. I'm willing to give you the continuance to next month, and he's willing to do the same thing. I don't honestly think it's going to change all that much.
I'd like to take it.
All right, if as long as you're okay with a continuance to next month, then I honestly don't think it's going to make a big difference. But the one interesting thing is we changed. It changed the evidence, the documentation that changed my mind. I mean, I think you heard me last month, and I do still hope that if Massachusetts changes the rules and makes it more apartment friendly. I know in this town, in order to put a two-family apartment in, you have to have twice the land you need for a single-family home. So obviously builders build single-family homes so they can get 2 for the same lot. But attorney, how do you feel? Would you?
So I mean, my client has sort of made a couple of statements to me. On the one hand, every time I get in the car and drive down from Newburyport, it's not free to him, right? So there's that issue. Of course, I presume I could attend the next meeting if needed by Zoom. Still, there's a cost to my client. Again, my client's also said that if the owner is insistent that there be a continuance, we're not going to object to it. But again, typically, most boards I represent would require the owner to put forth some evidence, some indication that something is forthcoming that is going to change what seems to be a foregone conclusion. We've heard 4 members of the 5-member board speak, and all have indicated that the evidence is clear. So if we knew there was something more coming, if we knew there was some testimony that could somehow contradict what we've got here, we might be more inclined to say, okay, we certainly don't want to, we don't want to be litigating this case and for there to be a due process violation that arises because somebody didn't have a full and fair opportunity to be heard. At the same time, the evidence is fairly clear.
What do you think, Eric? I think given the circumstances that he did get the documentation very late, I'd be willing to grant the continuance.
Okay. I think if you got 80 pages, I know I've had board members here that get stuff late, especially with the 40B we just did. And it's not the fault of our wonderful support staff. it's a default of people giving us stuff the morning of or afternoon of the meeting. Michael and Bob, how would you feel about issuing a continuance in this case?
I don't think it's necessary. It's pretty evident what the story is.
Yeah, I have to sadly agree. What do you think, Bob?
I agree. The evidence overwhelming. I don't think it's going to change our direction of our decision at this point.
Okay.
If we granted them a continuance.
Yes, sir, you had a question?
So I requested a continuance right from go. They got a continuance for getting information late on the first month. They also got an additional month they requested and received it.
Right.
Now they're making a decision. It's obvious all four of you from this information are voting for them. So it's easy for them to push that. And to me, I just don't think that's fair. Because I don't know if any of these, this 80 pages, how accurate is it?
Well, it's the town records.
Right, right. But, you know, there's no way that my lawyer can look at it and actually give me an opportunity to dispute it. I mean, it came to me at 10 a.m.
I'm sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to you in many ways. Have you engaged a lawyer in this matter?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You know, just in terms of fairness, if you don't mind, I'd say attend the next meeting by Zoom if it makes a cost difference to Rick, because we want to be fair to him too. I'm inclined to, guys, I'm inclined to grant it only because to get something the morning of is tough, especially if it's 80 pages. I do think it's a foregone conclusion, Mike and Bob. I completely agree with you on that. But I don't know if he's got a rabbit he can pull out of his hat. I do think you probably need a lawyer to go to have a discussion with whoever you bought the house from. If you wouldn't mind, just in terms of fairness, I always want to be fair to people. Just continue to next month and submit whatever you get. Don't give it to us the day of, 2-3 days before at least, and because I don't want to cause any cost to him unnecessary.
Just let me know what the deadline is to submit it.
Well, we meet the 21st, so if you can have it out, you know, somewhere, but get it to us before the weekend before, so that some of us who work can read.
Okay.
Mike and Bob, would you be willing to hold off just for another month? I don't think it's...
Sure. What?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
You guys have to make
Sure.
a motion for a continuance, right, Mike?
Well,
Excuse me.
Yes.
I would like to just add one thing. I did tell my lawyer that I was going to try to say very little. Before you make this decision, and in all fairness to Mr. Kelly, he's had 7 months to do what we have had to do. 7 months. And he is now getting it appears to be getting a pass on his failure to do his own due diligence. When he bought the residence, he's a contractor. I'm sorry, and I hopefully I don't want to come across the wrong way, but it says right on there, buyer beware, do your own due diligence. All of this has been going on for 7 months. He has not gone and done the public records request. He should have gone back to 1958, all those files. He has done nothing.
I agree with you, sir.
Therefore, I do think this is very unfair.
Because of whether or not they're going to grant you the ability to extend. It's not, yeah, you need the agreement from the appellant to extend.
Legally, it's up to you. You get to make this decision.
Can I confer with my client for a couple minutes?
Yeah.
So just like with any other application, you need the agreement from the applicant in order to extend timelines.
No, it's just such a confusing case that way. Because you would think he would be.
Yeah, this is a very unusual case. And this is the first I've ever seen. or
Yeah.
something like this.
But he'll tell you, because I've had, before each meeting, I basically come to him and say, what's my do's and don'ts? And it's taken me a long time to come around. The first 10 things I got from the assessor were all two-family, two-family, two-family. But then this mountain came in, mountain of stuff that wasn't that way. And again, I'm sympathetic. I hope that they do to change, the state gets their thing in order, because housing costs in this town are just, in the state, are just crazy right now. But we have to follow the laws, and I think we are. You know?
If this board is due, you've done your due diligence with regard to not only this matter, but every matter I've seen since I've come on.
I also was very happy, not happy, when we got the letter from the selectman's attorney.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing procedural in there. And I think that took real chutzpah for the selectman to come up there and say that. I thought that was great. And the next time I see her in private, I'll tell her the same thing. Because considering how frustrated people have been going to their meetings, it took some political courage for them to do that. So.
I'll just congratulate this board. I mean, when I came on, it was mostly shed variances and.
Yeah. Can I go back to that, please? That's all.
And so, yeah.
Are we still in session, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, we are still in session.
So I further consulted with my client, and we're not going to grant it further or seek a further continuance. We're going to ask the board to take a vote tonight.
Okay. It's up, legally, it's up to you on that one.
But can I clarify, through the chair, I reached out to Attorney Costa just wanting to verify that we will have 14 days to finalize a decision and record it.
You did reach out to me, and I neglected to respond to you, which was not intentional. We've just been busy putting this stuff together. But yes, of course, you've got that additional time.
All right, so Michael and Bob, I will take a motion. Mike, you want to give a motion? This was basically, the motion would have to be to...
So you, in this case, in my memo, I said it has to be in the, motion should be in the affirmative, but in this case, I mean, if the motion is, I make a motion to overturn the decision of the building commissioner as presented in his letter, and then it's an I, that should be sufficient to render the decision that you intend to.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mike?
I presume.
Yeah, the audio was really intermittent, but I think I got it. So I make a motion to overturn the decision of the building commissioner in regards to it being a two-family.
Okay, thank you, Mike. All right, seconded? Second. All right, all in favor on the board? Eric Russell, aye. Bill Andrews, aye. Michael?
Michael Gelb, aye.
Bob?
Bob Butler, aye.
All right, it's done. There's also, is there a 20-day on this one though? Or just the 14?
I believe there is also a 20-day appeal period from filing the decision.
Okay.
There is.
Okay, I just didn't know, it's such a weird case.
You
All
don't
right.
see appeals very often. You saw maybe one earlier this year.
Yeah, it kind of died. All right, Amy, I always ask you, it's very important that we have done everything you want us to do tonight.
Everything, and I'm sorry the minutes aren't ready yet.
Don't even worry about that. No, seriously, we're understanding.
But Mike assured me it's still not.
Okay. Mike, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight?
No, there's nothing you need to cover tonight.
Okay. Motion?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Mike, you want to, or Bob, you want to second that, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Michael Gelb, second.
Okay, Bill Andrews votes in the affirmative.
Eric Russell, aye.
Michael?
Michael Gelb, aye.
And Bob?
Bob Butler, aye.
Hey, Michael, it'd be good to be able to see you when you come in here now, once we get rid of the 40B.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so the motion
So I guess
passes.
it won't.
Anyways, thank you both very much. And I'll be in South Carolina next time. I'll zoom in. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Thank you. Yep.